morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. Welcome back to the Since I Was Young podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian. Enjoying you as always, and myself, you Ramsey, and Alan Scrimger. We do hope you're all good and well after a very disappointing weekend result away in Hampden in the Scottish Cup semi-final, which will be our main talking point this afternoon. Of course, we took back to Gorgie a very disappointing 2-0 defeat to Rangers, where it will now, of course, be an old firm final shock horror. So we'll talk a bit about that, things about the game, obviously the starting lineup, events that happened in the game, even though there's not that much, but some talking points and some aftermath as well that we want to bring up as well. And of course, we will look ahead to our first post-split fixture, which is away to Kilmarnock. That shows how much research I've done. Thank you, Alan, for the head nod. So it will be away to Kilmarnock of the first of 5 games before the end of the season. So we'll obviously talk a bit about that as well. And as always, with the necessities, if you haven't subscribed to the Since I Was Young podcast via our YouTube page, please think about subscribing. And if you want to check us out on our various social media outlets, please feel free to do so. They will be on screen and in the description as always. So as I said, you're all good and well, and you enjoy this podcast for this week. So Alan, as I said at the start, not the greatest result to come away with in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup. I guess we always knew it was going to be a bit of an uphill battle, especially in conceding a goal after the first 5 minutes to the game. But as always, we will start with starting lineup. A few picks that raised a few eyebrows, which we will go through, of course. So obviously, our thoughts exactly on who was going to be the man in between the sticks. Of course, Craig de Gordon. Again, quite an eyebrow. The race of the fact that we started with a back 4 when we were very under the impression that we were going to go a bit of a defensive mode with a back 5, but we stand corrected on the actual day. So it was a back 4 of Atkinson, Kent, Rolls, and Kingsley, with a centre 2 of Devlin and Benny, and a forward line of Vargas, Grant, Forrest, and the skipper himself, Lawrence Shankland, leading the line. So, as I said, a few picks that were a bit of a strange one. I guess the one to kind of start with, which caught my eye, was Cochrane on the bench and Kingsley starting. What was your thoughts to that particular pick and the starting lineup in general to face Rangers?
Well, I said it to you, and I'd been posting like the predictions and stuff on our other social channels and things. I've been posting up our predicted lineups kind of as the week was progressing, and I was convinced that we'd go with a back 5, well, back 3 really, with the wing backs obviously, just because we've done that in the past against both Celtic and Rangers, and I'm not saying it's worked relatively well, but I feel like it has. I feel like it suits us a bit more in those sorts of games, but. Yeah, so when I saw the lineup was a back 4, I was a bit surprised. But the Cochrane omission was bizarre to me. I think Alex Cochrane, and I'm sure I won't be the only person that says this, I think Alex Cochrane's probably been, certainly one of our best players this season in terms of outfield consistency. I just think he's a quality player. And it was also his birthday, which I thought was quite harsh. It was his birthday the day of the semi-final. He didn't even get a minute on the pitch. Maybe he's just wanted the day off. But yeah, it seemed kind of strange. I thought, like I say, I thought it'd be a back 5, and I thought Cochrane and maybe Atkinson or Limbakisa would probably be the one that would play if it was a 5. Would play, and they would be the ones kind of pushing down the width, but obviously didn't happen. Naismith said after the game that it was, when he was questioned about it, he said that Kingsley was selected for his experience and set piece delivery. So to one end, I can understand that, but to me, I just feel like, I don't know, it seemed a very, very strange one. And obviously, there was lots of talk about Cochrane potentially leaving in January. There's some interest in him, and I don't know if whether maybe he might be away in the summer, depending on his contract. I think he's got 1 year left. So I think if he doesn't extend this summer is the time to move him on. But I'm not saying for 1 minute he wasn't picked because he's going away. But if it was a tactical decision by Naismith, which it appeared to have been, I'm not going to say it didn't work because we'll touch on the game kind of as we go along, but I don't think it was the right call, but I also don't think he got it really wrong either. I think defensively we weren't bad for the most part of the game. But yeah, I still think when you've got a player like Alex Cochrane and the drive that he has down that left hand side and the drive to get forward, surely in a game like that, you kind of want that. So I was a bit surprised to see him on the bench. And then also the one good positive that I thought about Cochrane being on the bench was, well, he can cover midfield because he's played midfield before. So I thought maybe if we need to bring him on there, we could bring him on there as an option. But yeah, it just seemed a bit strange because, as I say, in my mind, he's been one of our better players this season, and for him to not be involved in the biggest game of our season, which it was at this point, seemed a bit strange.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that kind of was a bit concerning for me in particular, and it was quite apparent throughout the whole game, that the fact that we only had two in the central midfield areas as well, because it has been a common thing, and both the commentary of a fantastic pair of Michael Stewart and Ali McCoy during the actual game, like they mentioned multiple times of the three midfield in the Rangers starting lineup, and it was obviously quite apparent that we were just constantly overrun. Granted, I know that both Devlin and Benny are sort of the mind of a defensive role, if that makes sense, to recycle the ball to start, um, um, play up again, as it were, to then create that attacking threat. But you saw throughout the game that we were just to constantly overrun. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't. I mean, I wasn't unhappy in terms of the formation that we picked. I think I was a bit surprised that we didn't start with a back five. But again, if you're going to go for it, this would have probably been the game to have done so. And again, fair play to Naismith. But
Yeah.
it obviously didn't take too long for that hill to look impossible to climb after only 5 minutes, when I can only describe it as a defensive panic almost, where it started off with, again, as we just talked about it, when Kingsley was trying to clear it, or I don't particularly know what he was trying to do, but the ball came in over the top, clipped off his boot, and the fact that we were so slow to try and win that ball against Tavernier, because if he had fought quickly enough, we could have got to that ball easy. But it was just a slow. Like, I mean, we've talked about it before, where when we come up against the old firm, the old, like, one of the things we always say is that to start quickly and fast, but we always just seem to be slow at the mark in these games. And once Rangers got in to the box, the fact that all of Rose, Kent, and Atkinson, especially as well, where he was so deep, almost acting as a central defender. I don't know how many times he was caught out, not at that right side. And you have to give credit to Dessers as well. He was so cool under that pressure when, as I said, the likes of Rose, Kent, and Atkinson trying to stop the ball, but he took it so calmly as well. And I think it went through the legs of Gordon as well, which was a big surprise as
Yeah.
well, like to him. But obviously we will talk about the second goal as we go along. But do you feel as if the two goals that we did give away were a bit more easier than some of the plays we have seen against the Rangers in recent times?
I think it's difficult. Like I think the first goal in particular was one of those like you said. I mean, when we play Celtic or Rangers, we tend to take a bit of time to get into the game, and I think that's the thing. Like we always say, oh, we need to start fast, we need to be quicker, and that's true. But if we don't start fast, just be safe. Like I'm not asking for us to score a goal in the first 10 minutes against Celtic or Rangers. Don't get me wrong; it would be amazing if we could, but just be safe and just do the simple things. But we, from like when Rangers scored the goal, like we barely touched the ball in the first 5 minutes, and it was just you could see that we hadn't settled in, we hadn't been on it, switched on, whatever. And there were a lot of defensive failings in that goal. Like Atkinson gets done and Rolls gets done as well, and it's just Cantwell finds him. It's a good goal. It's a good finish, and I don't like to say that because I don't particularly rate Dessers. I don't think he's brilliant, and I know some Rangers fans don't even really rate him that much either. So certainly ones that I spoke to were like, "I can't believe you let him score two goals." That says everything about your defensive display that we put out. But yeah, it's always the way. Like it was the same in the 5-0 game not too long ago. They scored after 2 minutes in that game, and it seems to be a common thing that we just seem to take our time to kind of get going in these games. And, that's like I said it last week, it's all well and good that you can maybe take 10, 15 minutes to get into a game against a Livingston,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to get that luxury against a Celtic or a Rangers. And that obviously proved to be the case. The midfield point is interesting. Obviously, we had Benny and Devlin as a two with George Grant kind of meant to be the number 10 in front of them. But George Grant ended up floating all over the place because Shankland, particularly in the first half, Shankland was dropping so deep that there wasn't the space for Grant where he wanted to play because Shankland was looking for the ball because he couldn't get it anywhere else because every time we had it, we just made a mess of it. But their midfield three is just far superior, which it should be. They've got Lundstrom, Cantwell, and that new boy Diamande that they've signed. And I don't think John Lundstrom is a very good player. I think he's average, but whenever we play against him, and I said this to lots of people, and plenty of people seem to agree. Whenever we play against him, he just seems to be able to play in his slippers, and we just don't get anybody anywhere near him. Whereas other teams seem to just close him down, and I don't know why, I don't know what it is, but again, I don't, and it's weird because we're sitting here after a 2-0 defeat, and maybe my feelings and thoughts might have been different at full time, but I don't think we were particularly bad in most of the areas of the pitch. I mean, the final third, I'll probably speak about that after, but defensively, yeah, okay, Rangers caught us out a few times and maybe they could add another couple of goals, but they didn't. And that was more down to their poor finishing than us. But yeah, it's we just lost key battles on the pitch in areas that we needed to at least be competitive. I think that's the thing. I think, Benny had a decent game. He wasn't brilliant, but you don't get 90 minutes of Benny being a 10 out of 10 player at the moment. You get maybe half an hour where he's good. And then you get other little spells where he just makes the odd mistake or he takes too long on the ball. And that's something that obviously needs to be looked at. And obviously, with Benny potentially leaving in the summer, that's something else that, we can talk about later on or, a future episode. But I thought Devlin did well. I thought Devlin, of all the players, I thought he was the one that I sort of looked at and went, yeah, do you know what? You look like you give a shit. Like you look like you're up for this. And it was just a pity that there weren't other people that were. But yeah, it's annoying, and they are easy goals to give away. Like even the second one, and I'll not kind of go through it, but they're both preventable. And like Stephen Naismith has said that a lot this season. Even the game against Rangers, the 5-0 that I spoke about, the goals in that game in the majority were preventable as well. And it's individual mistakes, it's individual switching off or just not doing, like I said at the start, not doing the basic things. Mm-hmm. And that's why we ended up, behind after 5 minutes because we didn't do the basic things. When we got the ball back, we didn't keep it. We kept giving them it back, and it was inevitable. Like I don't like to say that because after 5 minutes of a cup semi final or whatever it was, 5, 10 minutes, however long it took them to score, it almost felt inevitable watching it. Like they're going to get a chance and they're going to put it away, and they did, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for the most part, with what you said, I do agree. I don't. After the first 5 minutes, I thought, we actually didn't play all that bad. I don't know if that was just down to Rangers kind of taking a bit of a back seat. I don't know. After they actually scored, that's when we actually started to see some sort of play from us. I mean, you know, there were a couple of times where we had good interceptions as well to start counters. There was an other opportunity from Forest as well, getting past quite a few of their defenders. There was a chance from Kent as well. Granted, if he had scored, it wouldn't have counted, but still nonetheless as well. There was obviously the chance from Oda as well, towards the end of the game. So I didn't think we played particularly bad, and I'll be very honest, I didn't think Rangers were particularly that good either. But just going back to what you were mentioning about about the final third as well. That's obviously again been quite a common free theme from Naismith as well in terms of what we do and the decisions we make in the final third. Um, and when I read the article that was in the BBC News the website as well, that he put that down to immaturity when we get to the final third. Now, I didn't really know what to make of that, in terms of, if that's just down to, not. I mean that that struck me as like, what, like, are they thinking like kids? Are they not being smart enough? Or are they, but with the progress that we've made in terms of how Naismith wants to play and have a bit more of an attacking minded setup, and players choosing the right passes, knowing when to shoot, etc., etc. Do you think that was a fair assessment? Because we obviously go back to, like, we always want to have a goal when it comes to the old firm, but you know we also have to be realistic as well, where, like, it's going to take maybe tens of years for us to be at that same level, if ever, but
Yeah,
yeah, going back to it, do you think that that was a fair assessment by Naismith, or do you think that was your typical kind of, I'll say this now, and then hopefully for the last 5 games, you know, we may get some sort of a reaction out of it to actually let properly secure from third place.
I think it probably was fair. I think he's made quite a big point of pointing out that we're like one of the youngest teams in the league in terms of our average age and stuff. And like when you look at it, like Vargas is Vargas is a very raw talent. I find I don't quite I like him. I think signing him on a permanent deal is a no brainer, and I like him a lot. But there was that moment where he was through and he just had to pass it across to Shankland and it would have been a goal or at least a shot on target, and he just makes the wrong decision. He had a few of them. Forrest had a few of them as well. Oda had a few when he came on. As I said, Shankland wasn't at the races as well. But I think, talking about it being a sort of immaturity, I think it's true. I think, and I'll point out Kenny Vargas just because those are the ones that stick in my memory from watching it. It's and I love Kenny Vargas. This is not meant in any way to, talk him down or, belittle him or whatever, but I think he's trying too hard sometimes. I think he wants to get the glory himself and he wants to score the worldies and he wants to be the main man. And I get that. Like it, I like a selfish striker, don't get me wrong. And I thought we actually looked a lot better when he was put more through the middle because he's not a winger to save his life. He's definitely a striker. But he needs to learn when to move the ball and when to make the pass and when is the right option or when is the better option available rather than just taking it himself. When is it more logical to pass it to a teammate who's literally in an open goal? And that is naivety. That is, the sort of learning experiences that he has to have, and he will. But yeah, I think it is the final third was the issue. Like we can talk about it all day. Like the Shankland header when he hit the side net, and I thought it had gone in,
Yeah, me too.
and it hit the side net, and then that was at 1-0, and you're thinking if that goes in, because at that point in the game, I mean, we're talking with like 15, 20 minutes to go at that point. It was maybe about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whatever. But at that point in the game, we're only 1-0 down, and you're thinking if that goes in, this game's on, this game's ours. And I was annoyed that Shanklin didn't even test the keeper, but at least he tried to get it on target. But I feel like he had to do a bit better with that. But I'd have to watch it again to be fully honest about it. But that's the thing. We had moments in the game. We definitely had moments, but we just again made the wrong decision. And yeah, listen, Vargas made a couple of wrong decisions, but George Grant did as well. So you can't talk about immaturity and youth. George Grant, I think, is about 25, 26. He might even be older than that. So I do think it's something that I wanted to kind of touch on, and I don't know what you think about it because I've seen a lot of people talking about like the mentality of Hearts players when they play against Rangers, and oh, we just don't turn up, we shit the bed, and all the rest of it. And I don't think it is that. I don't know what it is, but I don't think it's exclusively a mentality issue. I just think, like you said, we just have to accept that we're not as good as them. And if we're going to beat them on our day, we need a lot of things to line up in our favour for that to happen. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can talk about the Celtic games that we've won this season. The one at Parkhead, yeah, we were a good team that day, but Celtic were average and we took advantage of that. And it is that way in most games, like big games, you need, especially when you're up against it, you're the underdog. You need things to go in your favour. You need a bit of luck. You need the lucky breaks, the lucky bounces. You maybe need the referee to give you a right decision every now and again. And we didn't get that at Hampden. Like it didn't happen. So that factors in as well. But I just think, like I say, I won't go on and on about it, but I do think certainly a lot of the reaction that I saw was very much an overreaction, shall we say, because
Mm-hmm.
I've seen us play a lot worse against Rangers than that. And yeah, we lost because we deserved to lose because we didn't click in the final third. And that adds a whole other conversation, which I'm sure we'll touch on at some point about Shankland having an off day. But it's like I say, in big games, you can't afford for your big players to have off days, and we just had too many players on the day that were just not at it for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like I mean, you're right. I don't think it's a mentality issue solely by itself. Yeah, like there I would, just us talking about the immaturity, let's say, of the younger players. You could also argue that the youngest players actually get that mentality the most. Like, because even going to the second goal, obviously, we saw that Tate, you know, you could argue that he was the player at fault for that goal as well. But like, you saw how, when the goal went in, you saw how devastated he actually was. And trying to say it's only just a mentality thing. Like, I mean, as you said as well, you need quite a lot of luck as well
Yeah,
when you're facing the old firm. Like, I mean, do you think the fact that County beat Rangers for the first time in their history was down to the fact that they were a better side than the Rangers in general? No, yeah, you can't put that down to just sole ability and mentality. You know, on the actual day, it comes down to a lot of things as well. And I think as you said, we've said it quite a few times now. I think as a mixture of when we are on this amazing run, going back to the 12 game streak that we actually had, and then we get spanked 5-0,
Yeah.
we have to be realistic as well when it comes to these things. Yeah, we had a good game at Celtic Park, but that wasn't solely down to us being absolutely amazing. It was down to Celtic being absolutely shitty as well. So
Yeah.
this whole overreaction after the game as well. Some comments I'm seeing about we have to have a summer rebuild next year. We've got to get rid of this player. We've got to get rid of that player. Like, don't be daft. Like, it's I mean, where was all this when we got beat 5-0 at Ibrox? Where was all that when we lost them a 2-1 right in the death at Ibrox? You can't put that down to just to sell the whole team and then just rebuild. What we talked about in terms of after the result, and again, much like the Robbie Nielsen issue, where there will always be people that won't take to Naismith absolutely 100%. But what you do have to give him credit for is, especially with the start that we had when we first started the season, getting third pretty much at the first time of asking, getting us to two semi-finals, getting a result at Celtic Park, which we can't remember the last time we'd done that. 2012 or something like that, and to beat Celtic twice as well this season as well. You can't say that this has been a bad season as well, and most of the summer recruitment as well has been good. The fact that we've already signed 3 very good players already on the pre-contracts, obviously for absolutely free, you can't doubt that he's not had I would argue to say a fantastic season, because we third is our first, if you will, unless we start to go toe to toe with dual firm in the league, our third will be our first. And the fact that we've now going to have European football for 3 consecutive seasons, which again, I can't mind the last time we'd done that, I think he's done absolutely fantastic. And as I said at the start, this whole charade of let's rebuild for next year, I think it's absolutely nonsense.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think, just to kind of briefly touch on it from the game situation, like the Macaulay Tate substitution even got questioned. People are like, why is he bringing a young kid on? And, it was 1-0 at that point. He's bringing him on into a game. And you're thinking, well, he's bringing Macaulay Tate on because he wants somebody to take the ball forward because nobody in the midfield was doing it. And Macaulay Tate's been doing it since he broke into the team. So it's logical and it made sense. But again, it's reaction, and I hate that I'm even giving it any sort of time of day, because I know people are emotional after a game of football and they say things that maybe a couple of days later they reflect on and go, maybe that was a bit harsh, or maybe I didn't mean that. Heat of the moment stuff can happen, and I get that, because we've done episodes of this before after games that I've been at, and I've come on and shouted and sworn about it because that's what you do. But for people to blame Macaulay Tate for that second goal is laughable. Like, the young kid's picked the ball up and he's run forward and he's tried to make something happen. Okay, again, like I say, he makes the wrong decision and the ball breaks down, but the ball then carries about 60 yards in the opposite direction. Nobody, I think it was Cantwell, nobody gets anywhere near him. And he just obviously passes it to Dessers, who has 2 shots at it and it goes in. But I don't understand why Macaulay Tate got a lot of the blame for that. To me, I'm like, well, okay, he's the one that initially lost the ball, but there were plenty of his teammates back that just shat it and didn't bother to try and win the ball back.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and like you say about Naismith, I think it's the team selection that in terms of the formation, I think it was brave, and I'll applaud him for that because the back four is maybe slightly more attacking than the back five. I mean, it is because there's one less defender, obviously, and he's tried something. He's tried something. He's tried to go toe to toe with them, and to be fair, in the most part, we weren't bad. As I say, we competed, in that game. It wasn't a particularly great game to watch, in honesty. Obviously, the end result made it 10 times worse. But I think you're right. I think Naismith, it's very early for him as well. So even when he's talking about naivety and immaturity, he's maybe sort of, I'm not saying he's talking about himself, but we do have to remember this is his first management job at like a but decent level. So he'll be learning and he'll have taken lessons out of that game as well. So I think people need a bit of perspective sometimes. And yeah, as you say, our priority as a football club is to finish third in the league. And we've done that consistently. And we've got obviously the game against Kilmarnock to come at the weekend that would all but confirm it if we win that game, that third place is secured mathematically. And that's the priority. Okay, trips to Hampden are brilliant. And the fans were amazing. I didn't even mention them. The fans were outstanding, considering all the nonsense in the build up about ticket sales. The club really stepped up, and Big Hearts stepped up and did all their fundraising and everything, which was amazing. So the fans did their bit. And to be fair, I was watching it because I couldn't go due to work, but it felt like a cup final. The atmosphere felt like a cup final, and that's down to the fan base for doing amazing things. But I'm not buying the whole the fans turned up and the players didn't nonsense. I think we just, as I said before, the breaks didn't go our way, and that's why we didn't get anything out of the game. But I'm not going to blame Naismith. I've seen plenty of people say, "Oh, he made the wrong choice. He didn't do this right. He didn't do that right." And I'm like, well, if you've got a better idea, you go and stand in the dugout and you do that then, and see what happens then. It's I am a big fan of Stephen Naismith, and I think like you said, the pre-contracts, the summer recruitment, we will see what Stephen Naismith wants this Hearts team to look like in the summer, and I think there might be one or two that do move on, and that's a natural thing that'll happen, and it's about how they're replaced and what we do going forward. And yeah, listen, let's not put a dampener on the season based off of one game. I think that's kind of what I want to sort of leave that bit at. Like, it's not been a bad season because we've lost a semi final.
Well, I suppose one of the positive things that we can look forward to after the a defeat at Hampden is the possibility of pretty much mathematically securing third spot when we travel to Kilmarnock at the weekend on Saturday. Um, we've talked about it a few times as well, the fact that Derek McInnes has done a pretty good job in terms of turning that team around. I think I can't even remember where I saw it, but it was somebody on Twitter, and he was talking about in terms of how Aberdeen have done in terms of the last few years, and how it's just like kind of just fallen apart for them. Where I don't know how long McInnes was actually there, but he kept them a real steady side, and it was always a side that you actually feared, especially when they came to Tynecastle and to like when we went to Pittodrie as well. They've done well against us when they've came to Castle as well. I don't think we've actually beat them in the league, if I'm right in saying. I think we only beat them in the in the League Cup. Is that right? I may be wrong, but
This
this year,
this
yeah.
season for Kilmarnock, we beat them 1-0 in December away
Oh,
from
right,
home. But other than that, we
okay,
got the other game was a draw at Tiny in March.
yeah. I so like I mean, like he's done remarkably well. But just going back to this Saturday as well. I don't know how I particularly feel. I'm not feeling overly confident because I know, as I just said, like he's got them playing ridiculously well, and he'll also all but confirm you know European football as well, or at least the qualifiers for it. But to show that that turnaround as well, where it wasn't too long ago that we were talking about, like, the Kilmarnock being relegation contenders as well, and now they're up, like, on the higher part of the league. So us traveling to Kelly, yeah, I'm not saying it's going to be an easy task. I think it will be actually quite a difficult task to get a result there, especially all for 3 points. But just to kind of take it from the result at the weekend there, where do you think the team will be in terms of their mindset? And as we talked about, their mentality as well, because uh, if it was any other team away besides the Old Firm, I would probably feel a bit more confident, if that makes sense. But because
Yeah.
it's us and we've not mathematically done it, and we've obviously seen the scenes that we saw this time last year. Obviously, I know that that's probably not going to happen, but, like, we've seen worse things. But yeah, where do you see a result coming from when we travel to the Killy at the weekend?
I think like what you say about McInnes and the turnaround in Kilmarnock is spot on. I think, Derek McInnes has always been a manager that sets his teams up, makes them hard to beat, but also makes them quite good going forward and effective. It might not be pretty to watch, but it's effective. So yeah, they're definitely a stuffy side, but they deserve to be where they are based off of that because it just works, and McInnes just knows how Scottish football works. It's just because he's been around it for so long. Um, yeah, I think it'll be a difficult game. Like I say, I was at the game in March, just not too long ago, actually, only a few weeks ago, with John, a friend of the podcast. John, I'm sure he'll be listening at this point. He better be. Nah, I'm kidding. But yeah, we went along to that game, and Kilmarnock were not particularly impressive, but neither were we, realistically. Vargas got the goal after 10 minutes, and then we kind of laboured our way through the game, and then they scored in the second half, and it was 1-1, and it just kind of died after that. But yeah, I think it's funny because, like, I didn't even speak about it when we are talking about the Rangers game, but I hope that we go out there with a sort of wounded animal kind of mentality. I think because we saw that from Rangers. Like, I know obviously Rangers lost to County and they drew with Dundee and everybody. I think that kind of raised Hearts fans' hopes in the sense of, oh yeah, they're vulnerable, we can get them. And that obviously didn't happen because Philippe Clement had clearly put a rocket up Rangers for that semi final because of how important it was to them. And we saw a different Rangers from what we've seen in previous weeks. So hopefully, Stephen Naismith's chat about it being immaturity in the forward line, hopefully that puts a fire up our forwards to say, well, okay, we've kind of been called out a bit here because I think the general consensus after the semi final was our decision making in the final third is what cost us anything in that game. So if I'm a Kenny Vargas or if I'm an Alan Forrest or if I'm a Shankland even, I'm kind of taking that personally and going, right, okay, we didn't turn up that day, but we've got to make sure we turn up against Kilmarnock. I think our away record this season gives me a lot of confidence because we've been very, very good away from home. And I just think, I hope that, like I said, the need to win to wrap up third place and make sure that we can't be caught is nice. I think it's quite. I mean, it kind of means the rest of the campaign's a bit of the next 5 games or the next 4 games after it will be a bit of a kind of, all right, well, we'll just keep going. But having the Kilmarnock game first is kind of a bit of a luxury, and it's like, right, we can get third place done early, and then maybe we do start rotating the team. Maybe we do start seeing some young players that Naismith's thinking for next season. Maybe we start seeing players that might not be here next season not play as much. I don't know. We might see Tagawa get a bit more of game time. But yeah, I think it's a big game, and I think I do have confidence in us. I think we can, if we go out with the right. Again, I know I said it earlier, but if we go out with the right mentality, I can see us getting a result because I don't think this team doesn't come across to me as a team that will limp across the finish line because I don't think that will be allowed by Naismith and his coaching staff. I think they'll know how important this game is and they'll set them up to go out and win the game.
And so, on that note as well, would you have our prediction in mind then?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Kilmarnock side's not bad. They've got some really talented players in there that'll certainly be a handful for us. But as I say, I have confidence in us. I'm going to go for my usual scoreline prediction that I go with every week, and eventually I'll be right. 2-1 to Hearts.
Fair dues, fair dues. I'm going to stand by with what I say. I think, from just talking about Kilmarnock and McInnes, especially this year, I am going to probably sit on the fence for this one. I'm probably going to go for a 1-1 draw. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it. I just don't see us getting all 3 points. I don't think we'll get beat, but there's just something about it that the game just spells a draw. I don't know why, but
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, like you know what I mean. But hopefully I'm wrong, and if the result goes your prediction, I will be quite happy. But as always, guys, we would love to hear what you think, what the result is going to be. All your thoughts as well on the semi-final. We would love to hear all your thoughts on that. And if you think that we will have third place wrapped up by this Saturday coming, so please send in all your thoughts, and I think that's a good way to end this week's podcast as well. So as always, guys, for all you watching, thank you very much. It is greatly appreciated. And as I said, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please think about subscribing. And if you want to check us out on the usual social media platforms, please feel free to do so. So again, for all the fans that are traveling to the rugby park, we do hope you have a good one, and we will see you next week when we are back. You all take care. Bye for now.